Hello and welcome again. My name's Gakonga and this is another video from ELTtraining.com. You'll see this is a bit of a first. I decided it's time to try and show my face and see how that works, so I'm really interested in your feedback. If you can let me know if you find me being here more engaging or just more annoying, please do let me know. So this video is about giving feedback on activities. So we've got quite a few videos now in this classroom management series and we're getting towards the last one that I've planned, but I do have some others in the pipeline about feedback. So in this video we're going to look at how you give feedback to activities. For example, if you've given a reading activity and there's been some questions and you've got the answers, they've got the answers to it, how do you give feedback to that? If they've done a listening activity, same sort of thing. If they've done a grammar exercise or vocabulary exercises, when you're giving feedback, what are some tips and tricks and things to think about when you're giving the answers, basically? In this video, I'm not going to look at corrective feedback on spoken language. So the kind of corrective feedback that you would give to learners after they've done a productive task, that's not what I'm talking about here. That's quite a much bigger topic, I think, and one that I'm planning on dealing with in another video, but I haven't got time for it here. So, looking at feedback from activities. One of the things that it's really worth thinking about, making a major regular part of your classroom management techniques, is peer checking. So if they've done an exercise, a reading or listening, particularly receptive skills things where they're likely to be doing it on their own, it's a really good idea before you get class feedback, get them to check in pairs, get them to check with their neighbour. There are lots of good reasons for doing this. One of them is that it will give them increased confidence. If you have got the answers and you're not sure about them, and you check with your neighbour and your neighbour's got the same answers, you're much more likely to be involved in classroom feedback afterwards. So that will really increase their confidence. Even if my neighbour's got a different answer to me, that'll be useful for me to kind of go, well, why is it that? Or is mine right, is yours right? And to thrash it out a bit. The other thing that obviously is connected with that is that this gives more opportunity for speaking practice, which is clearly always a good thing. And I think just generally you get a better atmosphere in your classroom if you do things this way. So aim to always have peer checking as part of your feedback cycle. So something might kind of work like this, where you've got a reading, I'll put some books here, but a listening particularly as well. They check with each other first, and then they go back and have another look at the exercise before you get class feedback. And if you do it this way, you will get much more involvement in feedback. So that's a good thing all round. Something else to think about when you're giving feedback is who in the class do you ask? Now there are a couple of questions about this. One is, do you nominate somebody? Do you ask someone in particular, or do you ask the whole class? Now, generally speaking, I think teachers often kind of throw a question out to the whole class, and this isn't a terrible thing to do, but what will happen, of course, is that your more confident learners and your more able learners will end up being the ones who generally answer the questions, and the less able and the less confident ones won't. So it is a good idea to nominate, to ask specific people specific questions. You can also think about differentiating in this way as well. So if you've got learners who are less able, give them the easier questions. And don't make it too obvious if you can help it, but you can support people in this way. The other thing that this can lead to, if you just throw out questions, is that you can end up what's called flying with the fastest, which means that although the top 2 or 3 people in your class have got all the answers, and so you move on because you think, yes, they've got all the answers, it doesn't mean everybody's got the answers. So you do need to be aware that there will be different levels of ability within the class, different levels of understanding, and that if you always assume that they've all got it, if my two best students have got it, you won't be right. You'll be losing people off the bottom. So be aware of flying with the fastest. If you get the right answer from one or two people just going on, has everybody really got it? Another thing that's connected with this a little bit is about where you stand in the classroom and who you ask. Now, you might feel that you're very even in your asking of questions, that you ask everybody an equal number of questions, but the truth is that you probably don't. Research shows that teachers have often got a favoured side or a favoured gender. That can happen too. So what tends to happen is that you tend to focus on the learners who are in front of you and down the centre of the class, and then perhaps to one favoured side. I know I'm a bit right-sided. I tend to ask to the right, which means that these learners are very happy and these learners are very happy, but these learners are probably getting a bit ignored, and this poor learner over here hardly ever gets asked a question. Now, it might be that this isn't the case for you. You might be exceptional, but it's really worth recording it to find out. So you could either record your own class or get somebody in, a peer, someone who you feel is, not threatening to you, and ask them just to note, who do I ask questions to? So I think making a record of who you ask, even if it's in one or two lessons, just to kind of be more aware of it, is a good idea. If you're aware of your tendencies, you can do something about it. I think a couple of practical things you can do is to sit your learners in different places. Don't always sit them in the same place every lesson. You can also, you personally can stand in different places. That obviously moves the thing around a bit as well. It means you'll probably ask different people. And of course you can mix them up throughout the lesson. So there are practical things you can do to ensure that you're asking an even spread of people the questions. I think the main thing is to try and make a conscious effort to be aware of it. That's, if you're aware, awareness is a major part of making a change, I think, isn't it? Something else to think about when you're giving feedback is wait time. Now, when you're learning a foreign language, it takes a little bit of time for the language to come into your head and move around in there until it comes out of your mouth. So it might be that you've got this idea, you've understood what the teacher said, but you're having to think about it a little bit, and it's going to take a little bit of time for the answer to come out of your mouth. So I think particularly with novice teachers, it can be maybe a nervous reaction. You ask the question, they don't immediately give you an answer, and you either supply the answer yourself or else you just move on and get somebody else to supply the answer. It's a really good idea to just wait. Not for a long time. Clearly, if you're waiting for several minutes, it can be, and they haven't given you an answer, it can become very uncomfortable for everyone. So you have to use your judgment here about how long to wait. There is no set time. You just have to, use your judgment here. But it is worth giving a few minutes or a few seconds, it'll feel like minutes, to allow them to process the answer and get it out. I think that's really important. Peer checking can also help with this. We've talked about peer checking before, but it can help with this because it can give some of that processing time to people to sort out the answers in their head before they have to produce them in public. Something else you can do is to use an answer key. So giving feedback doesn't have to be about the teacher in the front of the room giving out the right answers or eliciting the right answers from the learners. It doesn't have to be that at all. If you've got, an exercise with 10 questions, give them the 10 answers. Let them check together in pairs. Give them one key between two. So that they have to check together. And again, more opportunities for speaking, more opportunities for discussion of why the answers were right. So, you know, that this can be a really very good way of giving feedback or allowing feedback to happen in a very learner-centred way. The other thing to think about is that when you're giving feedback to people, you don't have to give feedback on every single answer if you can see they've understood. So when you're monitoring around, when they're doing the exercise, have a look and see. Maybe questions 1, 2 and 3 are all very simple and they've all got them. So that being the case, you don't need to go through them with the whole class, because as you've monitored around and looked at all the different people, you can see they've all got that right. But maybe you can see that quite a few people in the class have struggled with number 4, they've all got number 5 wrong, and number 6 was a bit dodgy too. Well, clearly those are the ones that you need to focus on then and help them with whatever it was that they didn't understand. So don't feel as if you have to give feedback on everything if you've monitored around and checked that they have understood. So hopefully some of those thoughts will help you to get it right, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Do give me some feedback on how you feel about me being here. Please be kind. And I'll see you next month, when I think we're going to do a video again on exploiting feedback further, and then we're doing some corrective feedback on oral production. Thanks very much. Bye bye.